All right, we've got some people coming in. Thank you for being here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hopefully have a few more coming, but given that this is our second week of hybrid, I know that attendance is probably going to be a little bit light. It's hard to keep a lot of things in our brain. Good to see you, Sean. And by see you, I mean see you say hi. I don't actually physically see you, but I know you see me, so pog to you, sir. Uh, Dr. Afonso is going to be back shortly. We just wanted to get this up and running, so we'll get started shortly. All right, we got a few people here. We'll give them another minute to roll on in, then we'll get started.
All right.
Where is Cal State Stanislaus?
It is in Modesto. I'm sorry, it's in Turlock in the Central Valley, which is about 15 miles south of Modesto.
Gotcha.
So if you come straight up from LA, it's about 4.5 hours north of LA, right in the heart of the state. We're about an hour and a half from Yosemite, San Francisco, Sacramento, Carmel. I mean, we're an hour and a half away from everything, right in the heart of the state.
Yeah,
I actually live in Modesto, so.
I see. Yeah, I was going to say you probably have an easy time getting to Echo then.
Yeah, for me, it's very easy to get to Echo. I mean, it's still about an hour and something, drive, but it is, it's like an L just down and left. So
Fantastic.
I haven't been to Echo in a while. Were you at the last one that actually happened?
I think I missed the last one. I was at the one before that, and then this past one, obviously, I wanted to be there, but things being what they were.
And how long have you been at Coron Del Mar?
This is my 7th year.
Oh, okay. So you've been there for a while. For some reason, I got the vibe that you had just started there recently. So
I mean, I still feel in a lot of ways like I'm just starting, but I guess at this point I've actually been here for a while.
are you from California originally? Are you?
I did my undergrad at UCI and my master's degree at Cal State Fullerton.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Did you study with Rob there already when you studied
Rob
there?
and Chris.
Yeah. Rob is great. Such an intelligent man. Such a good musician.
Both of them are fantastic. We had Dr. Peterson actually come out to our last talk. He talked to
I
us about.
saw the website. Yeah. I have never seen Chris's work, so I can't but he's a very nice guy.
He's a phenomenal pedagogue, really is. All right,
Good.
let's go ahead and get started. So, hello everybody. For those of you guys watching who don't know me, I imagine you probably do by now, but my name is Andy Ball. I'm the director of vocal music here at Corona Del Mar High School, and welcome to our 5th speaker in our Finding Our Voice speaker series. The goal of the Finding Our Voice speaker series is to spur conversations about inclusion in the vocal music world. Just a few notes about upcoming events. In 2 weeks, on December 1st, we will be hosting our 6th FOV talk with Fahad Siadat, a composer, performer, and founder of Siadat Publishing, to talk about how our cultural assumptions about what makes good choral music have affected the kind of music that gets performed, and what we can do to expand our musical palette. Our final FOV talk of the semester on December 17th will be with composer and performer Morris Smiley, who will be talking with us about music as a form of activism. We hope you'll be able to join us. Also, we are shortly going to be having our winter concert, CDM Vocal Music Presents Home Alone, coming up in early December. We're still working to finalize a time and date for our drive-in movie event within the next week or so make sure to check back soon, and we'll have that concert available on YouTube soon thereafter as well. If you feel moved to donate to our program, the link is in the description of this video. If you're joining us on YouTube, thank you to everybody who has already donated. And if you have questions, we do have members of our leadership team, Sonia and Miriam, who are monitoring both the chat and the webinar here on Zoom. And also the live stream on YouTube. So even if you're not a member of the CDM Vocal Music family, you're welcome to bring your questions to our speaker. Also, if you would like to ask your question out loud, you should have the option to raise your hand and we'll be able to turn on your microphone. Do be aware if you're on YouTube, the stream runs about 30 seconds behind what all of us are seeing here live. So if you've got a thought to contribute, make sure you get it in quickly. Now, I'd like to welcome our guest. Dr. Daniel Afonso Jr. is the coordinator of vocal and choral studies at CSU Stanislas. He is originally from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and has studied with a host of phenomenal directors whose names I will at this time refrain from attempting to pronounce because my Spanish is pretty good, but my Portuguese is non-existent. Dr. Afonso has performed with choral groups in Brazil, the United States, and Europe, and has previously taught music at several locations in Brazil and at Duane College in Nebraska. He is a composer, arranger, and editor of choral music and has works published with the this autocorrected to Earthlings, but it's not Earthlings, it's Earth Songs. Is that right? Sorry.
That is correct.
Earth Songs and Alliance Music publications. He has been recognized for his research and performance of Brazilian choral music and continues to present workshops and lectures about Latin American choral repertoire, which is a large portion of why we have invited him here tonight. And while I have not had the chance to work with Dr. Afonso personally before this evening, people near and dear to my heart have fallen over themselves to tell me how wonderful a person he is and how incredible of an educator. My mentor, Professor Joseph Husey, has had many good things to say, and I was initially encouraged to reach out to Dr. Afonso by Eliza Rubinstein, our first FOV speaker, who said, and I quote, "His talk on multicultural music is still one of the single best presentations I've seen, and Daniel is an A+ human being." So Dr. Afonso, we are so grateful to have you here, and we're so excited to learn from you.
Well, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to join you guys tonight. I think you guys have such an amazing series. I was looking at the roster of speakers in this series, and I'm honored to be part of this group of incredible musicians and really just awesome people, you know. I am not exactly in this field of choral, of Latin American or Brazilian repertoire, kind of willingly, let's say this, put it this way, but it was kind of fell on my lap when I first moved to the United States. I never considered myself someone whose specialty is Latin American repertoire or Brazilian, repertoire. If you just put yourselves in my position, let's imagine that you as an American went to study in Germany, and in your first semester abroad, someone just decides that you are a specialist in American choral music. I wonder how many of you would feel comfortable, taking that kind of that label. And I was a little resistant at first with the fear of being, so to speak, typecast and only being seen as someone who knows Latin American music or Brazilian music and is not really a viable professional for other things. But, over time, I have been in the United States now for almost 30 years. I came here to go to graduate school and stayed. And over the period of, these 30 years that I've been here, I have kind of embraced this area of scholarship with much joy now. And I have discovered, a lot of interesting things, a lot of interesting repertoire, as well as interesting musicians and ensembles and conductors and composers that have certainly made my life much richer as a musician and as a human being. So what I have to share with you tonight is I'm actually really want to show a bunch of music from Latin America. One of the things that Mr. Ball said to me was that there was very little accessible, information out there, and it is somewhat true. I think part of the problem is having access to this information is that most of it will be in either Spanish or in Portuguese, and also I think most of us who live in the United States, when you open your computers and you do a search, you're most likely going to get results that are in English. So the things that could most likely be useful to you as far as repertoire and other resources will probably be at the very bottom of your search, or you might have to do a different search, in Spanish or in Portuguese. So sometimes it's really not, it's not a matter of whether or not the information is there, but is how to look for it and how you search for this information. That is the trick. And so what I want to show to you guys tonight is some examples of the repertoire and the different types of repertoire that we find in being performed and being composed and being performed by Latin American musicians, specifically composers who are interested in choral music and choral ensembles, as well as choral singers and conductors from all of this region. I also need to say that none of what I'm going to tell you is an absolute truth, or none of it applies to every country. I mean, it is just impossible to do a lecture in about an hour and talk about more than 20 different countries that form, what we consider, what we call Latin America. Even that terminology, Latin America, is a little kind of interesting because we somehow put together countries from Central America and countries from South America, and we just call it all Latin America, as if it all had shared similar aesthetics and similar uh, interests and similar ways of expressing themselves. And as every country, even within one country, you will find so many different ways of expressing yourself and so many different ways of writing music. Just today, I was giving a lecture to my choral literature class, and we're now getting to the 20th century. And I was telling them, look, there is really no trend by country. There's no trend by genre, by style by type of music. You will find many different kinds of music in all of these countries. And so likewise, it's in Latin America. When you're talking about the choral music from Venezuela, there are some similarities with the choral music of Colombia, but also has some very, very different things. There are some countries, for example, in which you will find 4 or 5 different, national idioms that are actually official idioms. But Uruguay, for example, has several different languages that they consider the national idiom, national language of the country. And even Spanish, that is spoken by so many of these former Spanish colonies in Latin America, even the way the Spanish is spoken from country to country is slightly different. If we had time, I would show you that maybe the same piece being performed by the same Latin American piece being performed by choirs from different countries. And you will see that they pronounce the Spanish slightly different, depending on where you are. And then there are also the different types of music and other aesthetics and artistic expressions within each one of these countries that kind of yields a variety of repertoire. But I wanted to show you some examples of the Latin American repertoire, and including a few things from Central America and a few things from South America. That might give you a taste for the variety of music and the beautiful music that this repertoire brings to us. I'm going to start. Let's see if I can get my PowerPoint to go here. Yeah, let's see. So one of the things that really bothers me is that often people consider, because they don't have access to the information, they make assumptions that something does not exist. This is a quote from a very recent book on choral repertoire that was published by a very, respected publisher, Oxford University Press, and written by one of the most respected, choral directors in the United States in the last 50 years, someone who's very accomplished and has an incredible knowledge of choral repertoire. But in the chapter about modern music, he writes that South America and Canada, also mainly conservative, meaning in the style of writing their music, have not produced a large number of composers and therefore have not made a significant impact on the development of choral music. Nevertheless, there are a number of composers from both countries, as if South America were one country, who should be mentioned. And then he goes into, mentioning just, the main composers that kind of got into the history, the music history books, people like Villa-Lobos from Brazil and Guastavino from Argentina. But that bothers me to an extent because that is just not true. I think this is an assumption, this is a statement that is made kind of suggesting that there are no composers who made an impact in the choral music in the repertoire, the literature for choral music, I'm sorry. But it's basically because he does not have access to that music, or he doesn't know how to find that music. But I'm going to show you another document here. I'm going to share with you a PDF that I'm happy to send to Mr. Ball later on, with just a very brief list of composers from Latin America, just so you can see that, number one, Latin America did produce quite a bit of composers. So these are some of the composers, and every composer, just to be clear, every composer on this list has written choral music. They're made to this list because either I have performed this music, I have studied this music, or I have seen the scores, or I have read about it somewhere. And I made this list. So from Argentina, the three main composers that we hear quite a bit is Alberto Ginastera, Carlos Guastavino, and Ariel Ramirez, all three 20th century composers. Ginastera and Guastavino a little bit before Ramirez. Ramirez was active more in the second half of the 20th century. But then you also have composers from Chile. Here are some composers from Colombia. And now, of course, because I'm from Brazil, I know a little bit more about this. I've been studying this all my life. But here are there's a list of composers just from Brazil, from the colonial period, 19th century and early 20th century. And these are composers who are, most of them are still active and alive and writing music for chorals, for choirs. And the list goes on and goes on. And that's just Brazil. Now here comes Ecuador, Cuba, Haiti, Mexico, Peru, Venezuela, and the list goes on. There's Guatemala, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Paraguay, Uruguay, Bolivia, Guyana, Suriname, and the list goes on. So as you can see, even scholars who are respected in our field have a very biased, very Eurocentric idea of what the choral production of Latin America has been. Another thing that is might be surprising to a lot of people is, like, Latin America has been producing music since, the late 15th century, when the Americas were claimed by the Europeans, and the Europeans came and took it over. And of course, with the transfer of people from Europe to the Americas, also came knowledge and information and the arts and all that stuff. And so we have had art, and I'm talking about music, but art in general in the Americas for 5 centuries, and I think our view, or our expectation of the choral repertoire from Latin America is also a little limited, because we have a tendency to kind of project into this music, or our expectation of this music, what we think of Latin American music is. We think about music that is very rhythmic, and rhythmic music that is very fun, and quote unquote, music that's, I often get requests from colleagues saying, Daniel, I need a good closer for my program. Do you have something that my kids can sing and add some movement? And right there, I have to bite my lips not to, answer in a more aggressive way. But that is kind of what people expect, right? But there is way more music coming from Latin America than just what our biased idea of it can be. So let me get back to that PowerPoint and show you a few examples of music that we don't expect to be from Latin America. So if you heard this music, would you think that this is Brazilian music? And this is an awesome, beautiful, beautiful psalm by the Brazilian composer José Maurício Nunes Garcia. Nunes Garcia has a really interesting story because he was a mulatto composer. He was a Black composer. And he joined the priesthood late in life. When he joined the priesthood, he had already been married and had fathered children. But he found in the priesthood in the Catholic Church access to music instruction and music, performance, and access to some things that he, as a mulatto musician, did not have access to. It was very segregated. Of course, Brazil was still colonial Brazil at the time, and a musician of color would never had any opportunity. And so, as a priest, he was able to do quite a bit and perform, and he left an incredible amount of music that sounds like anything that was being composed in Germany or in France, during the same period. This is just basically, Rococo music, music from the classical period. In fact, an interesting fact about José Maurício Nunes Garcia is that he was the first conductor to perform Mozart's Requiem in Latin America. He was responsible for the first performance of Mozart's Requiem in Brazil at the time. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that there is a way more music out there in very unexpected things. Now, here is another example of a piece that was produced in Peru, was written in Peru. We do not know for sure who wrote this, but there are a couple of interesting things about this piece in particular. This is called Hanak Pachap Kusikwinin. And if you don't understand what that language is, it's because that is one of the native languages of the native peoples of Brazil, of the South America. It's Quechua. This is in Quechua. And when you listen to this music, if you've seen the score, and let me show you the score real quick, so that you can have an idea of what this looks like. This is maybe just, of course, now I'm not gonna find what I want. Oh, there it is, here you go. It's the world of online teaching. Here.
I feel you, man.
Oh, man. Okay, here, I found the score. So here it is, here's the score. And when you listen to this, you will see that this basically is a little motet. It's in modo, it's not tonal yet. This is still using the modes, the Greek modes that were, melodic modes, melodic scales that were used before in the late Middle Ages and early Renaissance until the early Baroque. And if you look at this, it looks just like any piece of music that you would find in any collection of music from the Renaissance or from the early Baroque. The only thing is that it is in Quechua. It has many, many verses, and it was found in Lima. And this piece is known as the earliest surviving polyphonic composition from the Americas. And it was compiled, it was published in an anthology that was organized by Juan Pérez Bocanegra in Peru, and has actually several recordings available today. But let's listen to this a little bit so you can kind of get an idea of what this sounds like. So let me get back to the PowerPoint now. Hopefully it will behave. There you go. Too many windows open here. There you go. Let's get back to that page. All right, so this is Hanak Pachap Kusikwini. Now, in this ensemble, when they perform, you hear that they add percussion and they add some other instruments. You can hear faintly a harpsichord there in the background, and it sounds very much like a processional. And some scholars believe that this was a piece that was used to be performed during a processional as you're going towards the church. The number of verses that this song has is also another piece of evidence that it was believed to be used in a processional, because it's a very short piece, but with about 10 verses, it would give you plenty of time to walk several blocks around town and get to the church. But another example of music that is coming from Latin America, this being 17th century, but certainly not being, the first music that was written there. I'm sure there was music being, written and performed way before this. But I find this interesting also because it kind of is a mix of the performance practice. The music looks very much like anything coming from Europe, but as you hear this with drums, and other instruments, and how it was used in a processional, it kind of gives a little bit of a twist. And this piece is very well known throughout Latin America. A lot of conductors have performed this. A lot of people programmed this, and there is a full collection of songs like this that was published in Peru around this time. So as you can see, we do have music in Latin America for being written and being performed in all sorts of styles. I want to show you now some examples of music coming from Latin America in kind of different, focusing on different elements of our culture. The first few examples that I'm going to show you are just really traditional choral music that, while is being coming from Latin America, it follows the same very structures of what we've learned in our music history classes, and we've learned in ACDA conferences, and when we go to sessions and when we study this music, with the only twist that it's coming from Latin America. This first one I want to show you is by Carlos Guastavino, an Argentinian composer. This comes from a set of I think 6 or 8 songs, if I'm not mistaken. And what I find really amazing about this is beautiful poetry. One of the things, as I said in the beginning, that kind of keeps people kind of distant or avoiding this repertoire are the languages, which I think for us in California, where we have 49% of the state being Latinx, I think Spanish is almost kind of a first language in our state. We have a lot in my choirs. I always have a lot of Spanish speakers, and it's very easy to kind of bring this repertoire. And so I like to use this piece because it's a beautiful poem. We are so used to singing 19th century German music that has some really beautiful poetry, in German, that we kind of study and we just dive deep into the meaning of the words and how beautiful the poetry is written. And in English too, obviously, when we sing music, coming from the United States or from the UK, that has beautiful poetry, you always spend so much time understanding the meaning of the text. And we can do the exact same thing with music coming from Latin America. This composition, particularly, Se equivocó la paloma, talks about this dove that took a wrong turn and went to the wrong direction. And the whole piece, the text, the poem, is a beautiful metaphor, to when we go through life and we think we're going in one direction and we go to a different direction. And the more we plan our lives, the more surprises we have. I think 2020 is here to prove to all of us that no amount of planning will get us where we want to be. So this is a very simple art song from Argentina, Se equivocó la paloma. And I'm going to stop just because of time. As you can see, this is a very simple part song, 4 parts SATB, something that most mid-level high school ensembles and in good college choirs can do. The poet, it's very homophonic, it's kind of a hymn-like, and so really emphasizes the poetry and so much room for interpretation. And Guastavino is kind of one of those neo-romantic composers who write things that are just very lyrical. He's written quite a bit of choral music, and there's quite a bit of repertoire. And by the way, a lot of his music, the set of music from which Sakimokola Palona comes, is all published in the United States by Chos Music, a publisher from the Midwest. There are quite a bit of his music currently in print, and people don't do it just because they don't want. He's got music a cappella with piano, his music for treble voices, music for mixed voices, a really rich variety. The next piece I want to show you, let's see if I can get, oh yeah, this comes from, oops, went too far. This is from Venezuela. It's a piece by Cesar Alejandro Carrillo, a composer who's still alive and very prolific composer with choral music. The ensemble you're gonna hear is the main ensemble from the El Sistema's program for voices. It's conducted by a good friend of mine, Lourdes Garcia. And this piece is the traditional text, O Magnum Mysterium, that we've heard so much particularly during this season, during the holidays. And I think this piece is just as beautiful as most of the music we perform during this season. It is published in the United States, and it's again another one that has kind of a neo-romantic vibe. I'm gonna let it play a little bit so you get a sense of it. I've done this piece several times, and every choir that performs this is always ends up in love with it. And I'm gonna stop I think I can stop this in just a second. There you go. Just for time's sake, I'm gonna stop. And the sound is like, of course, these live recordings, sound level is a little low, but you can listen to this later. This is the ensemble. I was saying I gave all the wrong credits. This is the Orfeon Simon Bolivar, and this is Lourdes Sanchez, conductor. I would never forgive myself if I said this wrong again. But another piece that is, very traditional, it just, something that you could easily fit in any program. It's available, and it just shows a little bit of the variety of music that's coming from Latin America. So now I'm going to show you something slightly different. This is a Swiss-born Brazilian composer. I don't think it could be more exotic than this. But Ernst Widmer immigrated to the south part of Brazil in the beginning of the 20th century and established himself there as a musician, as a composer, as a teacher. And he also wrote quite a bit of choral music. I think this is his masterpiece. This is Psalm 150. It is also published in this country. You don't hear very many performances of this, but it's a really spectacular piece. And I'm gonna play the recording, but I actually would like to show you the score for this one because it's a really fascinating score. And let's see now if I can do this right and share the correct screen. Yes, I think I'm gonna do this right. So this is now Psalm 150 by Ernst Widmer, Brazilian composer, from 20th century Brazilian composer. Let me get this one. There you go. So here's the score for you. And let me get the music started there. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Oh, sorry. There you go.
That's so fun.
And you probably heard.
Oh, uh-oh.
I'm having an issue here with Zoom. Hang on.
Oh, there you are.
Did you find me again?
I think so. We hear
Okay.
your voice, if not your face.
I'm kind of stuck here. My computer just got a little frozen. Let's see. I don't see you.
Okay.
Hang
Well,
on.
we enjoyed the performance.
For some reason, it's trying to close my Zoom. Oh, here I'm back.
Okay, fantastic.
So I think I'm just pushing my computer too hard here. So as you can see, I mean, isn't this a fabulous piece of music? This is published here in the US. Quick story here. As you can see, the piece is actually in Portuguese, but I don't know if you noticed in the first few pages, there is also the Latin text underneath. And that was a requirement from the publisher. The publisher would
Oh no.
be performed by anybody. So they forced, or I shouldn't say forced, but they asked the editor to make sure to include a Latin text so that the piece would be a little bit more accessible to other groups. So, but I digress. This is just to show you the variety of music that is coming from Latin America. And it's not just the typical folk music with dance and choreography and all sorts of things. Let's see if I can get back to my PowerPoint and quickly.
So right now we can hear your voice, but we can't see any video.
Oh, okay. So let me close a few things here because it's trying to make me close Zoom, and I don't want to close Zoom or I'm gonna lose everybody. Let's see. Oh, come on, computer.
I mean, we won't disappear if you do have to log out and log back in, if that's something.
Yeah, I'm feeling that the way my computer is behaving, I might.
And now to entertain you all, Miriam will sing a song.
Hey, you can't rope somebody into that, man.
I nominate Mr. Ball to sing a song.
How do
La.
we nominate no one to sing a song?
There he is.
Okay, I don't know how, but it seems like I'm connected twice here, but here I am. Let's see what I can do here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can you see me again?
Yep, we can.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's see now if I can get back to that PowerPoint. And I may not do the whole thing anymore, but just kind of show you a few things. Thank you for your patience, everybody. Sorry for this technical difficulties.
The name of the game this year is Grace. Allowing everybody as much as we can.
All right. So maybe we're back. Do you see anything on your screen now?
Yes, we can.
So we talked about Laudate, Hanak Pachap. We mentioned Paloma. We also mentioned Meine Mysterium, and we were just listening to Vidmer. And the choir that you heard is the the São Paulo State Youth Choir performing this. It's a fabulous ensemble from the city of São Paulo. There is quite a bit of repertoire, and I had a few things selected to show you, but because we're just a bit short of time, I'm just gonna mention a few things. This is a piece from Haiti called Freo, and it's a piece that comes from the voodoo tradition. And one of the interesting things when I performed this with my ensembles is that we got to kind of study a little bit what this was and what kind of ritual it was, and we found out that the people who practice voodoo consider themselves Christians, and they actually also worship Catholic saints. And this is something that happens quite a bit in all of Latin America. We call it religious syncretism, which is when several different religious traditions are fused, and sometimes they end up kind of the worshipers have an affiliation, or I should say, they kind of follow different religious traditions and sometimes mixing them. In Brazil, there's an interesting story that during slavery, the government, or I should say the emperor, would not allow the slaves to worship their own saints. They could do their drummings, and different from here in the US, when the slaves, the families were separated. In Brazil, the slaves' families were not separated. So their social groups remained together. And so it was a little bit easier to carry their own traditions, the traditions that they brought from Africa regarding, religion and food and costumes and the way they dress, all that stuff. But anyways, the emperor would not allow the slaves to worship their saints in public. So what the slaves would do is they would find Catholic saints, and they would kind of create kind of a relationship between their own deity from whatever ritual they had and the Catholic saint. So they would pretend to be worshiping, for example, Santa Barbara, who was worshipped as the goddess, the saint of thunder, but they would also worship their own god, the god of nature that kind of sent thunder. So they would pretend and sing hymns to Santa Barbara when in fact they were actually worshiping their own saints. And this kind of thing happened quite a bit, which is similar to what I'm saying in the voodoo that has this mix with Catholicism and voodoo. In this tradition, they believe that when someone is sick, you gather around them and you sing for them, and the spirits will communicate through the music. And so you sing to make the spirits happy, and hoping that the spirits will come and bring delivery and will kind of help the person who is sick to recover. So just a little bit of that, because I hear Mr. Bo is interested in performing this. Stop. This is like almost 5 minutes long, but it gives you a sense of what the music is. I don't know if you notice, but the arranger that has a name that doesn't sound very Latin American, right? That's because he's Swedish. This arranger is from Sweden, but he lived in Haiti for many years and wrote several arrangements of Haitian music. We also have right now in the United States a young Haitian composer, Sidney Guillaume, who has become very popular in the United States in the last 10 years. He's very prolific too. A young guy, has been writing a lot of music. He's getting quite a bit of recognition. And then there is also Émilie Desamours, who's another Haitian composer who has written quite a bit of sacred music, music for Easter, music for the holidays, and some of their music. I mean, Sidney Guillaume has quite a bit of music published here, and he, if I'm not mistaken, is now self-publishing. So it's very easy to get his music and even work with him directly. He's a really nice guy. Émilie Desamours also has some music published here. Very fun, very interesting music. I've done quite a bit with my university choirs, and everybody just loves that stuff. Now, you've heard in the first few pieces that I showed you are more kind of in the traditional setting, and now we're kind of, with Freo and this piece that I'm going to show you, we're going more towards what I consider music with a folk influence or pop influence. This is a very well-known piece by Argentinian composer Oscar Escalada, still alive, very well-known conductor, composer from Argentina. He's very involved in choral music around the world. And I wanted to show this particular recording because it's a choir from the Philippines singing this Argentinian piece. And an interesting thing is that they are pronouncing the syllables. This entire piece has only onomatopoeias, and it's just trying to create the feeling of a tango, but they pronounce the syllables as if they were pronouncing in Argentinian Spanish. So the Y, for example, instead of, I don't know if you heard in Se equivocó la paloma, there was a moment that they say creyó and they say creyó because the Y sounds a little bit like a J in some regions of Argentina, and these people do that. But I also like this recording because they take it really, really fast. So the piece is already very difficult, and at this tempo becomes almost impossible. I want to show you the score for this one, so I'm going to stop and I'm going to share a different thing because this is a fun score to follow. And I'm sorry if you hear some weird noises coming from here. My dog is complaining that it's time for his food, but he's going to have to wait a little bit longer today. Hang on. So this is the score of Tangueando. Let me show you. And as a really good exercise in reading music, as you can see, and I'm sorry, this is my own score that might have a few scribbles, that he plays quite a bit with rhythm and ostinatos, meaning, melodic and rhythmic patterns that repeat over and over, but he slightly changes them at every repetition. The pattern starts to change a little bit. So let me put the recording to play, and then you will enjoy Tangueando by our Argentinian composer, Oscar Escalada. Did they say piche, piche? Now at 6. And 10. $11. Now at 14. $17. Let me stop this.
Oh, that's great.
It's another great piece. They do it a little bit too fast, which in my opinion ends up kind of discharacterizing the tango. And that's kind of, one of the problems, but Filipino choirs, they just are so incredibly virtuosistic. You know, they can do so many amazing things. You know, but as you can see, this all comes from the folk tradition. You know, and this is music that's influenced by the folk tradition. I have a few more things to show you. I had a few things from Cuba and from Brazil, but I'm gonna just skip for lack of time because I think we're almost out of time. I'm gonna skip to my last example, which is one of those rare compositions that come from the Americas that is actually based on music or melodic ideas from the native peoples of the Americas, or sometimes referred to tribes or ethnic groups. This is this piece that I'm going to show you. It's called Três Cantos Nativos dos Índios Craô. It literally means three native chants from the Craô Indians. The Craô Indians is an ethnic group that is from the central part of Brazil. It's a region right in the heart of the country. It would be probably like the Midwest of Brazil. And the Craôs were a very, very large tribe that have, you know, like many other groups from the native groups of the Americas, have been decimated by the white people. But these three songs were collected by a friend of mine, Marcos Leite, composer who unfortunately passed away before he was very, very young. You know, he was just about 50 years old when he passed away. And this piece has been performed by, I don't know, pretty much almost every all-state choir in this country. It's become very, very, very popular here. I actually published this piece here when I was still a graduate student, when my choir director in my graduate program was looking for something to perform at a concert, at a conference. And I said, I think I have the right piece for you. And then he performed this. But I think this ensemble, it's the from New York, it's the Young People's Chorus from New York City with Francisco Nunez. I think they have probably the best performance of this piece I've ever heard. This piece has sounds from, it starts with sounds from the jungle, trying to create kind of an atmosphere as if you were in the jungle, hearing the sounds of the forest and the storm and all that stuff. And so, and then it goes into the chants. And I think these kids just do an incredible job performing it. So please enjoy. This is Três Cantos Nativos dos Índios Craô, performed by the Young People's Chorus of New York City under the direction of Francisco Nunez. Here is the piece. Let's see. I think this is going to work. Yes. Isn't it an incredible piece?
That's great.
It's an incredible piece. I think these guys do an incredible job. And so I hope you just got a little bit of the variety of music, choral music that comes from Latin America, all the different things that you can find, all the most interesting things that don't necessarily fall into one style, one category, one type of music, but rather a bunch of different styles and a bunch of different categories. And you can find pretty much anything for any taste. You can find things in the vernacular languages, and you can, in Spanish and Portuguese and so many other languages. You can find music in Latin. You can find music that is more traditional and following the European kind of model. You can find music that is based on folk music. You can find music that is inspired by the music of the native peoples of the Americas. And all of that make up what I think is the music from the Americas. So I'd like to open up for some questions. I skipped a few things, but Andrew, I'll be happy to share my PowerPoint with you. And so you can, share with your students too. And as I said before, that handout with composers' names and all of that, I'll be happy to share with you too later on. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this little bit of an introduction to Latin American choral music.
Yeah, thank you so much. We'll absolutely open it to questions and answers for right now. It is 7:04, so if you are watching and you need to get going, you have my blessing to do so. But if you'd like to ask some questions of Dr. Afonso, you're welcome to stick around. But thank you so much for being here. This was fantastic. So one that got asked very early on that I'll put to you, and I'm going to frame it a little bit differently than how it was put. So you mentioned early on that you sort of got pigeonholed when you came to America. Into sort of focusing a lot on Latin American music and Brazilian music. What music do you like to perform? What's your favorite sort of music?
That is a good question. What really gets my brain going is music from the late Renaissance and early Baroque. That is what it's like my passion. And that's what I get to do quite a bit with my students at school. I have a fondness for the Franco-Flemish music, from Josquin and Lasso and that kind of people, but early Baroque is also something that just gets my blood all excited about music.
Fantastic. Another question from my students: why did you stay in America after coming here for college?
That's a good question. They would not let me go back to Brazil. No, I'm kidding. I have been banned from my own country. No, that is a really good question. Why did I stay? I came here, when I first came to the US, I came because at the time, there were no graduate programs in choral music in Brazil. So I came here to get my master's degree, and I went to the University of Missouri in Kansas City, where I studied with Eve Ely, who is one of, probably one of the biggest influences in my musical career. Dr. Ely had been to Brazil with his choir from UMKC on tour, and I met him there. I auditioned for the graduate program there while he was in Brazil. I got really lucky because he was giving a master class, and I was one of the people in the master class. And so he said, I will consider the master class as your audition for the program. And when I came to the US, when I finished my master's degree, I got an invitation to substitute for a teacher who was taking a sabbatical year in Nebraska, from all places. So I've learned what cold weather is, very, very quickly. I had to learn very quickly. And I spent a year in Nebraska. And then from there, I was still thinking about going back to Brazil, but I decided that if I went back to Brazil at that time, it would be more difficult for me to come back if I wanted to get a doctorate. So I went right into the doctoral program, and I went to the University of Iowa. So I was all in the 2 years in Kansas City, 1 year in Nebraska, and then 2 years in Iowa City. And when I was finishing my doctoral program, a friend of mine came to me and said, Daniel, I have a job for you in California. It's like, no, you don't. That's not how things happen. It's like, no, listen up. I have one of my dearest friends teaches at CSU Stanislaus, but he has just accepted a job in a different school, and Stanislaus is open, and they are just doing a very quick search to see, and they're only taking candidates who are being recommended by people. And my friend wants to recommend you. I had met this person. and say, okay, sure, put my name in a hat. I don't know, it's never going to go anywhere. And 25 years later, here I am. I first came to California as a substitute teacher for a year. And when the job opened, I applied and I got the position. So I have been very, very happy and in this place this is my 22nd year in California. So,
But sometimes that's just how it works. You gotta
yep,
go through that door once it opens.
exactly. And that's what I did. So,
And then a question that I have for you,
yeah.
and you can send this off in the email as well, but I would love your recommendations on resources to find Latin American sheet music as far as publishers. I don't know if Earth Songs is the best place to look. If not,
Yes, I would say for a very long time, Earth Songs was the one to go to, and you would find, and you still can find quite a bit. I have one of the things that I did not play for you was one of my own pieces that I was going to show you. I have several pieces published with Earth Songs, and Earth Songs has a fun way to search because you can search by country, you can search by language. So there's quite a bit of repertoire on Earth Songs. But there are other publishers now catching up with Earth Songs. Gentry has quite a few pieces. Um, um, Cho's music has quite a bit of Argentinian music. And several of these publishers now are distributed by Hal Leonard. So even if you do a search on Hal Leonard, you might find some stuff. But I'd be happy to send you some things. There's quite a bit. It's a lot of people end up surprised to see how much core Latin American music is currently in print in the United States, published, and you can just, a click of a button, you can buy this music and it's all there. Another place to go that I encourage people to check is CPDL, the Choral Public Domain Library. There you can find, I mean, that first piece that I showed you, that José Mauricio Nunes Garcia, the mulatto composer who conducted Mozart's Requiem for the first time in the Americas, he is a very prolific composer, and there are hundreds of his choral music, his scores published not published, available on CPDL, as well as many other colonial composers from Brazil, from Peru, from Venezuela. So you'd be surprised to see how much of this is on public domain and how much you can find available for free. That score that I showed you, the Hanak Pachap, is from CPDL. CPDL has like 4 different editions of Hanak Pachap, there. So there's quite a bit of resource, quite a few resources there.
great. And then if I were to sort of want to track down recordings, do you have favorite ensembles that you would recommend that I look for that are Latin American ensembles?
Yes, there are several. There's tons of them. There is certainly this group from Venezuela that you heard, that is from El Sistema, the main ensemble from El Sistema. And Cuba has an incredible choir called Exaudi, and that has recorded quite a bit and has several recordings available online. Brazil has at least 3 or 4 great ensembles. There is the Coro da Orquesta Sinfônica de São Paulo that has recorded quite a bit. There is that youth choir that I showed you. I mean, I'd be happy to kind of send you a list. Argentina, Escalada has a very good group. There is also the Coro from San Juan. I can't remember their name right now, but it's my dear friend Maria Lina will never forgive me for forgetting her name of the ensemble. But anyways, I'm happy to put a list together for you. There are too many to name. Costa Rica has El Café Choral, that is just all a great ensemble. And you will find quite a few. It just sometimes maybe what you can do is just search, Música Choral Venezuela, Música Choral Bolivia, Música Choral Chile, Chile. Oh my, how could I forget Chile? Chile has an incredible choral movement there, very, very strong, lots of choirs. So pretty much in every one of these countries, you will find at least a half a dozen ensembles that have recorded quite a bit. And now with so much being available online, you can find a lot of it on YouTube. It's just really knowing what to look for.
Exactly. That's why I'm asking. Is I really liked it. I did some preliminary searches and found some stuff, but not nearly as much as I knew was out there. So, Awesome. I think that is it from us. But thank you so much. This was such a joy. It was a pleasure to meet you. I really appreciate getting to hear about your work and and all this stuff that you're doing. And yeah, it gives us a lot to sort of dig into. So thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. And to everyone who is interested, I'm gonna, you have my email, but I'm gonna put my email in the chat. And if anyone is interested in, you have any more questions, just please don't hesitate to contact me. You can find me at CSU Stanislaus, or you can just shoot me a message. I'm still on Facebook, despite the social dilemma. But I'm still there on Facebook, so you can find me there too. And I have a lot of my own compositions that are also available on YouTube. If you just search for my name, you at least half a dozen things will pop up, and you'll see some of my own music there too. Okay.
All right, fantastic. Thank you
All
so
right.
much. Have a great night and
You
good luck
too.
with this crazy semester, this crazy time.
I know. Thank you. You too. Bye bye.
Thank you.
All right, take care.